Well, well, well. Bitcoin. Bit of a move to the downside, but don't worry, it's cheaper now. So, yeah. Bit of an interesting day to say the least. Thought I'd jump on live right now rather than just wait because the market's more than likely going to be moving very, very shortly. It's been an absolute madness. How can a relationship cause the markets to tank? Trump and Elon, it's done. Now, Tesla's stock didn't drop because Trump and Elon are over. But obviously, I'll be diving into that during this live stream. But I've got a logic. Granted that Bitcoin, the NASDAQ, have been very interesting to say the least. But what I will say is this. If this move has been engineered to do something, then tomorrow might be a good day. But it could be the start of something else. So I'm going to break it all down for you in this live. I am aiming to keep it short and sweet yet again. But by the time we're done, you should have a good idea of what to expect from now going into tomorrow's non-farm payrolls. Because this week we've had lots of data, but tomorrow's data is going to be either the nail in the coffin or 2025 bull run, baby. Yeah, one of them ones. Anyways, let's get with the program, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. So you've probably seen that headlines hitting right now. Tesla sinks 10%. The Trump and Elon Musk relationship is done. Here it is right here. So Trump has effectively put out these posts. Says here, the easiest way to save money on our budget is billions and billions of dollars is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it. He says Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted. Now, the result of that has led Tesla to drop 15%. Damn. That is a big drop for Tesla, man. That is a huge drop. I mean, this stock just gets smacked with news and influence. It's just unbelievable. Followed by the fact that the S&P itself did relatively well on the back of that. You can see it's only dropped 0.41%. I mean, Tesla's dragging everything down. NASDAQ down 0.6%. Not looking good. Going over into the euro, sustaining itself. We wanted to see euro climb up a little bit more, but she's marked up to come back down. But euro's going to be playing this consolidated range. But we got the non-farm payrolls tomorrow, which is going to be very important. And I'll be getting into the logic of that very shortly. Bitcoin. Not bad. Not bad. It's taken a bit of a tumble to the downside. I'm not bearish at all. It's just going down. You know, this is good news. It's cheaper. It's not just cheaper. You know, people are buying. Yes, people are buying. People with the big wallets. Big fat wallets. Here, these guys right here. Coming down. What liquidity we got? Nothing there. 6 million, 7 million at 101,000. You got 7 million at 101 again. I mean, will we actually see this continue to the downside tonight? Maybe. Maybe. I mean, today's data that came out would grant the idea that the market in principle should have moved up. Okay, so we just quickly go into it. The unemployment claims came in 247. That should mean the market should be moving up. But this is where I'm going with the idea of a logic. I believe that this move is being engineered for one of two reasons. It's either going to continue to bleed out tomorrow, and you'll end up seeing Bitcoin taking an absolute nosedive and come back down towards the vector candle recoveries. Okay? Alternatively, tomorrow's non-farm payrolls, if we get the following data, then it could suggest that the markets have come down to come back up, because that's what they do with non-farm. It's the most anticipated data release. And especially right now when we're trying to work out whether or not the Federal Reserve is going to give us those 2 rate cuts that everybody is anticipating. Okay? Now, with that being said, in front of you, non-farm employment change, 126K. Earlier on this morning, I came up with the idea that the reading was going to come out bad in the sense it was going to be higher. Why? Because we've got this logic about the JOLTS job openings. It's not true data. It just tells you how many companies are offering, but does it represent the amount of people in work? Microsoft have laid off 6,000 people with hundreds more. So that reading kind of came into perspective for me in the sense that maybe that might be a falsified figure. It just looks good, but the market reacted to it. The next reading was the ADP non-farm employment change. That came in lower. So then by looking at that logic, you would say, hold on a second. JOLTS job opening, 7.39 million. More work is being offered. Fine. Then you've got a slowdown in the ISM. Okay, so slowdown in that sector means that there's a slowdown. People aren't, it's not going to be business. It's not moving. So if it's not moving, why are you employing people then? That 37,000 on the ADP was the clue for me to say maybe that this reading's going to come in and show there is more people claiming benefit. That's good news because we want that so that prices can go up because it means that the Federal Reserve's going to cut. Tomorrow's reading. They are projecting 126,000. If that reading holds and we get 126,000, then the market will react. Because they're familiar with that figure, they will then naturally say, okay, but is it going to be enough for the Fed to do something? But if this reading comes out tomorrow, anything below 126,000, we get something like 90, ladies and gentlemen, that would solidify the idea of the 2 rate cuts the market is expecting. Interest rate swap traders would go on the expectation that the Fed might actually act before the next FOMC. What I'm trying to convey to you all is the idea of why prices could be getting ready to make a move up. However, if we get a repeat and we do see a blowout figure, that means the JOLTS job openings ends up confirming that there is work out there. A reading above 126,000 would pretty much confirm that Jerome Powell ain't going to be touching interest rates, ladies and gentlemen, and we'd be lucky to get 2. We'd probably be lucky to get 1. I'm basing the idea that maybe price action is being primed for it. Yes, Bitcoin is taking a little bit of a tumble to the downside, ladies and gentlemen. We had this move covered, but it was hard to take. Let me explain. We were looking for Bitcoin to take a move to the downside, but it made such a sharp move to the upside that a few of the guys still managed to maintain it and ripped it down to the target of 103, okay? What I can't project is how far the move to the upside will last. But I know, based on the way the hybrid system operates, that those guys were running shorts for days, especially when Bitcoin made the pump to the upside earlier on today. Now that Bitcoin's taken a tumble to the downside, it is breaking a very significant structure right here. Very important, because it's the area where you would naturally anticipate Bitcoin's going to try and make a little bit of a recovery. But the nearest point of interest, in my opinion, would be the 100K mark. It would make sense for Bitcoin to land at that point, okay? Maybe this is the top. Maybe this is the M formation. Maybe this is the level 1 consolidation. You know the structure back in the day. Drop, retrace level 1. Drop, retrace level 2. Drop, retrace level 3. Peak formation. That could be something that happens because the non-farm payrolls could actually send price back up, but it might not continue too far up. It all depends on the data, okay? But what if this is part of the cycle? Because they've consolidated, dropped it, recovered, couldn't do nothing, rolled over, shaked everybody out. Now the only next logical spot for Bitcoin to sustain from is from this range. It needs to hold this point to suggest the idea of going up. If it doesn't, ladies and gentlemen, it's coming back into the vector candles right in here. You know, that's the logic right there. Oh my God, this is going to break. Elon just dropped a major bomb on DGT. Don't drop DGT. DG. Look, Donald Trump attacks crazy Elon Musk over row tax. Yeah, but look, he's pissed off with him because he's attacking Trump on the tax bill. Okay. But is he really attacking him because of this? You know, that's going to hurt shareholders. That means you've practically got a license to print money with this mandate, and Trump has removed that. Quite frankly, I think it's hilarious. I mean, if we go into it, look, no longer. It's over. He responds with whatever. How can these two... you know what, guys? Ultimately, what we got to look for is the fact that Bitcoin right now is taking a bit of a tumble to the downside. We've got to roll over to the order flow. And I said this, that there was hardly any liquidity coming in. And now you've got liquidity stacked at 100,000, 550 for 20 million. But look at the book. It's empty. Did someone just come in and plant that there? No. The book is empty. It's completely empty. This should grant the idea of investors coming in, but be careful with it, guys, because as much as you'd be anticipating a nice reversal back up, which is what I would naturally be expecting from this move, okay, you've got to consider that tomorrow non-farm payrolls is realistically going to be the market mover, okay? We need a reading above 126,000, all right? And a reading below 126,000. We need it to be so low. We need 50,000. That's what I would love. We see 50,000 in terms of non-farm employment change. That is so bad. The Fed has every reason to cut the rates. But then if the unemployment rate itself stays at 4.2%, then ladies and gentlemen, we've got a problem. But if the unemployment rate actually increases and goes to 4.5%, Jerome Powell will have to do something, which is why I expect the emergency rate cuts to come into play. That would solidify your market to the upside. That, in my opinion, you know? Time to open a long. Be careful opening longs in these ranges. Okay, be very careful. Hold on, what's NASDAQ doing? Oh, NASDAQ's rolling over. Damn. Yeah, NASDAQ's breaking down, ladies and gentlemen. It's not looking good. I'm on the 4-hour time frame, man. Let's just drop it down a little bit further. Here we go. That is very, very nasty. Let's quickly go and have a look at Ethereum for a second. Is Ethereum breaking down? Yep, Ethereum. We had a target for Ethereum today, which was hard. Again, today was very hard with the setups because they made the stop run relatively high. But if the guys still maintain the entry points, because what I do is I encourage them to use their own stop losses. And you use these if you want to, but it all depends on your risk, okay? I can't allocate everybody's risk, but use it as a guide to work out where you could be putting your stop. But if they manage to stay in these trades, platinum members, I don't know if you are still in these shorts, but you would have hit your targets. 2485 for Ethereum today, and we're currently tapped to 2506. What a story that was. Nice drop. Very nice drop. Actually, it stayed within its entry. Hold on a second. Am I talking wet here? Here we go. Yeah. So 2645. So the entry would have been valid. There we go. 2645. 2640. What a joke. Wow. Look at that for precision right there. Just never mind. But anyway, that hopefully those guys have held those shorts. And Solana, wanted to see Solana roll over today. 149, 147. And where we at? 145, ladies and gentlemen. That thing didn't even bloody stop. Here she is. 144. So they've completely ripped the ranges to the downside. Very minimal drawdown on Solana. You would have entered at 153.20, and you wouldn't have seen the sweep to the Asian session. It would have been above that point, happy days, and then you would have seen the move to the downside. If those guys have made some money, then happy flipping days. Now, it's not every day like this, ladies and gentlemen, because the markets have been very, very difficult, and that's me being clear with you. But once we understand the narrative and we get the idea of where they're likely to end up, these are the sort of setups that you get when you become a platinum member, okay? And I'm posting every single day, 6 asset classes, ladies and gentlemen. We had the euro trade covered today. That made the move to the upside. We had the gold, not so much gold because it didn't really make that much of a move, but we had NASDAQ covered in the sense we wanted to see one of the targets, 21,938 was cleared, but then they made the reversal from that point. I wanted 22 today, but didn't quite get that. But with that being said, if you want to take advantage of that, guys, it's on the Traders Reality website. Under the join section, check out Platinum Membership and you'll understand exactly how to use the hybrid system. But if you are new, just go to the homepage and start there with the PDF. It's free. Download it. There are trades that I've taken images of and explained to you how to use the hybrid system. Just click that bad boy and then you'll be way on your way to getting on with the hybrid system. And of course, you can download it free of charge when you go through this stuff right here. Okay, cool. Now, quickly go back into Bitcoin. Still going. No, it's pulling back. That's nice. It's pulling back. Okay, what you'll probably get tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is you'll probably get Bitcoin just really consolidating. Might see a bit of a recovery, but quite frankly, the move is pretty aggressive to the downside. Just having a look here. It seems like it's being run by Donald Trump and this Elon story. Just quickly going over to Tesla for a second, see how far that keeps on going. Where we at? 15.3%. Nvidia's getting smacked at 1.54%. So anything else other than that, ladies and gentlemen? Remember that ETH guy? It's going to moon, lads. Wow. Look, yesterday, and I didn't get really a great response from anyone yesterday regarding me saying that the top is in, okay? And it was welcomed with resistance. Well, luckily, you could be at support right now. You know, that's the irony of it all. But jokes aside, I favor no bias. I favor movement. I come to the charts and I look and say, oh, maybe there's a possibility, given that Bitcoin has been up of the psychological ranges. And this is shit that I talk about all the time. All right. It gets boring for you. I get it. But it comes into fruition. It does. Look, above the psychological range, down, above the psychological range, down, above the psychological range, down. So they're giving us the idea that they're selling above that zone. Above the psychological range, shit the bed. They did it. 1, 2, 3. And she goes down. These psychological ranges are so important, ladies and gentlemen. The first high and the first low that's formed at the start of a trading week. You get it with the hybrid system. Study it. I've looked at it too long. And so many ways that you can trade this, but they give you the clues. Break of the 800 EMA. Wow. Those guys got done. Last week, we were talking about golden crosses, but don't get it twisted, man. This is on the 1 hour time frame. Go to the daily time frame. If it's not above the 5 and 13 EMA, I told you today, wait until the day's closed before you decide to buy Bitcoin. Now, be honest now. How many of you bought Bitcoin at this range? As long as they're staying below the 5 and 13 EMA, and I said the first time they broke the 5 and 13 EMA, I said that last week. No, it's bullish, Tina, it's bullish. It's bullshit. We talk about this all the time. So don't go on like it's new. It's there. First break of the 5 and 13 EMA has then led to the drop, retrace, continuation lower, and not once have they managed to stay above the 5 and 13 EMA. You'd be able to go short and not look at the chart because they haven't cleared the 5 and 13 EMA. And this is on the daily time frame. Now we're trading back into the cloud itself, and we have not looked at this vector candle for a little while. You want Bitcoin to sit in that range before the interest rates. You do. You want to see it sitting there. You don't want Bitcoin being as high as it can be before interest rate cuts. You want to see it slump. You want the market to price in the idea of interest rate cuts so that they can then start maneuvering money away from assets to take advantage of dollar being cheaper again. That's why Trump's banging on about this all the time to cut the rates, because everyone's chipped to the Eurozone. Everyone's chipped to Japan. Japan's got a debt crisis with its bonds, yet they're still borrowing yen because it's cheap. Capiche? I see any questions. Why are the psychological high and low so important? What reasons behind those levels? Now, if you are new, the psychological levels are the first high and the first low that's formed at the start of a trading week. Okay, so for the Forex, it's done on a Sunday night. And then in crypto, it's done from a Saturday night. And it takes the first high and the first low that's formed within the first 8 hours of the market's open on the new week. Okay, that range dictates where price is more than likely going to react from. Okay, I'm going to give you this. Going into the settings of the hybrid system, what you'll find is you go down and it says show historical psychological levels. All right. Just go back and do this exercise, ladies and gentlemen, and then you'll have an understanding of why I keep on banging on about these ranges. Okay. Look at this. What day is that? Thursday. What day is it today? Thursday. Anyways, what did they do? Right. Sold above the psychological levels, came down. Sold above the psychological levels, came down. Tried to get above the psychological levels, took a shit and went to the downside. Where have you seen that before? Okay, then cool. So sold above the psychological levels, came down. Sold above the psychological levels, came down. Sold above the psychological levels, took a shit. That's why I was projecting Bitcoin to go down today in the setups, because I recognized above. Well, logic says above to go down again. Okay. But this is the mechanics of it. It's an area of interest. So there's the first high, there's the first low. Sold above it, came down. Does it always work like that? Not necessarily. What else can they do? Went above it, came down, and never looked back. Traded away from the Asian session high, Asian session low, up she went. Trade away from that zone. Here's the next psychological levels. Went below it, came back into it. Went below it, came back into it. Went below it, shifted away from it. Okay? When you study these ranges, look, came away from it, consolidated, W formation, broke above it, rise, retrace, test the psychological levels, continuation to the upside. Let's remove this. Would you be even thinking about that range right now? Would you even have any reference to any of that if this wasn't there? Let's just remove everything to put it into perspective. What do you see? Well, some people might be drawing flags, okay? They'll be drawing their flags and doing all this flavor right here. They'll be doing that. Then they'll be doing the trend line right there and then shifting out to the upside. No discredit to anyone that does that, but add a little bit of weight to what you're doing. You got the first high and the first low that's formed at the start of the trading week. You might be savvy to it and you might be marking it off and saying, okay, that's the first high and this is the first low. Happy days. If price can consolidate around that range, what are you doing? If price can consolidate around that range, then I would assume it to be an area of support. But with the hybrid system, you get all of that. Look at that. It's there for you. It makes it a little bit easier. There's your rise. There's your retrace. There's your continuation. So the bull flag traders right there, what is it? Is it a flag or is it the fact that it's respected the first high and the first low at the start of the trading week? Go back in the charts. Do it again. What do you see here? Bouncing up and down, up and down, up and down. When Bitcoin stays in these psychological ranges, it doesn't go anywhere unless it goes. You know? Do it. It costs you nothing to do. It's free to use. That's the logic. Technical term is diarrhea. True. The expectation for non-farm payrolls is ridiculous considering last month's numbers, Tino. Probably is. But you can see already that the data that is already coming out, this was a ridiculous figure. That right there at 37, it was projected 111. Do you understand? It's like no work is being offered. Business is closed. But keep the interest rates high because we've got a mandate for 2% inflation. Please. Does a hybrid system TA work on altcoin, Bitcoin pairs? Could you give us some insight about using ETH Bitcoin chart? Latest price action as an example. Appreciate it. What you've got to understand with this, okay, is you can still fundamentally use it, okay? Because the vector candles, you can use it on any asset, whether it's Tesla, Nvidia. I mean, I'm looking for it all the time. Look, they go back into the gaps. They go back into the vectors. Obviously, it's not 24-hour trading, but the idea is it's based on the speed of the way price moves. And the only way that price can move like that is either rushes of liquidity, imbalances, market makers, market orders, all coming in at speeds. And that is represented with these vector candles right there. So just take that into consideration when you're using the hybrid system. You can use it anywhere you want, you know, but it's a representation of the speed at way price moves, okay? And then when it's fixated like this and it's left a print, tells you that there's imbalances inside of that candlestick. So that could be a point that price is more than likely going to revisit at a later point, okay? Hey, T, President Trump and Musk look like high school girls in a social media fight. Correct. Anything else, ladies and gentlemen? Other than that, I think we're good. So, moving on, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow's non-farm payrolls, okay? I would probably be very cautious about trading tonight and going into the Asian session, but more importantly, there will be an initial reaction from Asia, but I don't know if they're going to hold price because of the non-farm payrolls, because tomorrow is going to dictate whether we're going to see a Fed pivot very, very soon, Or, ladies and gentlemen, Bitcoin's going to be ending up even further and closer to Uranus. And the irony is Uranus is above the moon. I didn't know that. Mad love and respect, guys. Peace.